Yeah! Woo! Okay, so years ago, when my computer was working, there it is. Years ago, when I worked for an agency, I was really fascinated by the back office of Umbraco. And that was because here I could shape the software that my clients would be working in. I could ensure that it made sense for their business, and as well I could nudge them to create the content with aligned with the vision that we had as an agency. Is it really that slow? Okay. So I'm really happy to see all of you joining today, because today's session is all about bringing the editorial experience up to the next level. And I really hope you are up for making this happen, which is why I'll kickstart your journey by enlightening you with the possibilities of the back office. So learning the new possibilities relies on you getting a good understanding of the foundation of the back office. And though the back office already provides a pretty good editorial experience, then many projects can gain a lot by a few customizations that are tailored for just that project. Okay, I'm gonna skip this clicker, that's really annoying. And that is nothing new in the universe of Umbraco, but your ability to do so has increased widely, because a year ago we released UmbraGo 14. And that is a version that looked almost like its previous versions, but beneath the interface, a completely new architecture emerged. That is not working for me, okay. It's an architecture that is shaped for extensions and customizations, and we embraced this and turned everything into extensions. And you may be thinking, what does that even mean, that everything is extensions? And to answer that question, I will initialize the back office. And right here, we have it, the UmbraGo 16 back office. But before I dive into the new abilities, let's just revisit some of those you know from previous versions. So a classic extension was the dashboard. It was a great way for you to make an introduction for your users or create some kind of overview. I hope you also all know about the section. Here you got enough space to bring whatever you could dream of. And then once you had a section, you could bring a tree. And that is still possible, but we broadened it up a bit, so now you can bring any interface in here, and then that could be potentially a tree. And once you have a tree, then you could have tree actions, and they have also been reshaped slightly. And we did that to bring the actions at the hands of the editors. So now they are called entity actions and are also available over here. And in near future, they will also be available in the various pickers. So speaking of things that got a new name, then right here we have the list view. And that is now called a collection view. No, sorry, a collection. And you could extend this with your own list view layouts. And they are now called collection views. And that is, of course, still an option. And it's a great way for you to provide a specialized overview of your type of content. Another classic is, of course, the property editor. That could be anything from a small input or a very full-blown editorial experience. And at last, but not least, we had something called content apps. And they are still here, but now they are called workspace views. Okay, it works sometimes. And the name workspace is a new term in UmbraGo. This is the common term for the various editors. I think you can say every time you're editing an entity or some piece of information, then you are within the workspace. So for example, right here we have the document workspace. Or here we have the media workspace. Or right here we have the document type workspace. And this one is called the property type workspace. And this one is the data type workspace, and the user workspace, and the dictionary workspace. I hope you get the point. The space where you work from is now a workspace. And the point with that is that this means that these are now a shared space. So the workspace view we talked about before can also be added here to the dictionary workspace and all the other ones I just went through. So that gives you a common term that you can rely on and customize in a similar way across these areas. So a few names got changed, some got a broader usage, but that is not the noticeable difference compared to Umbraco 13. The important difference is that these extension points are now managed with a client-side extension registry. And that means you got the freedom to manipulate the extension registry when you desire. This means you can append things when you want, or you can remove things when you want. You can also remove things you did not register. It could be things coming from other extensions or the core itself. It's all under your control. And I've taken advantage of that because what you see here on the screen is not a slideshow or a screen capture. That is actually me having an instance of Umbraco running here on my machine, controlled with this clicker that sometimes works. And as well, I have a little header app up here I can use to control it with. Another change that gives you more freedom is the fact that you're no longer bound to build your UI in a specific framework. Browsers now support web components, and we have embraced that in Umbraco. And this means once you register an extension, you bring a web component. And a web component can be anything, and it can be built the way you want. Whatever you can build with JavaScript, or a framework of choice, as long as it brings a web component. So it could be Angular or Vue, or as we recommend, using Lit. So you've now seen the Backoffice can be reshaped at runtime, and you learned that you can bring any type of UI into it. But I think it's worth looking a little bit at how that is done, so you know which knobs you can turn. So it all starts with a manifest. All extensions are declared through a manifest, and that takes place either as a file on disk or via JavaScript. And a manifest is an object that contains a few properties, and in this way you define your extension. The first one is the type. Here you declare what type of extension it is you want to register. Then you give it an alias that acts like a unique identifier, and then you point to the element, aka the web component, that you want to display. And these properties are the same for all extension types. So right here on the right side, you now see a yellow box, which is inserted via the manifest you see in the main view. So let's try to change the type of this manifest to see it becoming a header app instead. And voila, now it's in the top right corner. It's still the same element, I just changed the type in the manifest. So this means once you learned how to make one extension, you should be pretty good at making all of them. There's a few optional generic features that most extension types supports, and these are quite essentials to the customizations I'll go through later. So therefore, I would like you to understand how these works before we look at actual customizations. So let's have a look at the first one, and that is called weight. And you can declare a weight, and in this way you control where your extension should appear. So let's try to set the weight to 500, and now you should notice that the yellow circle is now placed left of the user profile. I can go back, now it's right, and then I put weight on, then it's left. And we can even bump this to an insanely high number and see it going all the way to the left. Another generic feature that I would love to show to you is one that you can use if you're looking to replace an extension. And this is done via the overrides property. And in this one, you declare the alias of the extension you want to replace. Again, we declared an alias for in our manifest, and that's the one we can use to reference other extensions. And now that I have declared the override property, you should be able to see that the current user button is gone. And that is possible because everything is extensions. So the core UI you see is also extensions, meaning you can actually replace everything. You can also choose to make your extension replace several other things. So in this case, I listed all 4 aliases of the header apps that were there before, and now they are gone. We can go back and forth. So this makes it quite easy for you to manage extensions that replaces other extensions. And once we unregister my extension again, then these reappear. And this is key to the next generic feature I would like to demo to you, which is called conditions. Conditions is a way for you to control when your extension should be displayed. The condition is a piece of logic that determines when the extension should be shown. So when you have one or more conditions declared for your manifest, then your extension will only appear once all of the conditions are met. So to demonstrate that, I'll just bring back the header app here, and this time with a condition. This condition is a little bit silly, but it continuously switches between approved and disapproved. But I really hope that proves that it can be any logic you like. It can be resolving when you want it, and it can even change its state. So it's not a one-time condition, it's a running piece of logic. So the conditions is actually the way we implement many of our user permissions. If the user has access to a given thing, then we show it. If the user does not have access, then we don't show it. But it's also a way for us to make sure that some UI only appears in certain states. For example, the ability to restore something from the trash bin. That uses a condition that checks if we are within the trash bin, and if we are not within the trash bin, then it does not approve, and then we don't see it. So here next, I would like to show you how that works together with the overrides property. So when a condition is defined, the extensions you declared to replace will only be replaced when your extension is shown. So let's declare both just to see how that plays out. So now, when the yellow circle appears, the other header apps goes away, but when the yellow circle is not permitted to be shown, the other header apps are back. And okay, I will have to admit, these simplistic examples start to become a little bit silly. So let's look at something a bit more relatable. And for that, I will present to you maybe your new favorite fictive UmbraGo company using UmbraGo. And this is UmbraGo, your friendly travel agency. Yeah, okay. It's a fictive company, but they have a website built with UmbraGo, and it has a few back-office customizations that I would like to show to you. So the first one here is the dashboard. And there's nothing really special here, but it's just a nice way for you to give the editors a good welcome and make the back office feel like it's theirs. As well, I added a few handy links here in the bottom to the most common tasks for their project. This travel agency writes a lot of articles to promote their various services. So I really wanted to give them a good experience when they are creating articles. And the out-of-box experience when you are creating articles looks something like this. And that is a bit silly, because they only have 4 options. And why not make these 4 options shine a bit more? So I would like to replace this with my own custom modal and give the editor a better overview of these 4 options. To do that, I need to register 2 extensions, an entity action, and a modal. The entity action was the one that was previously known as the tree action. And first, I'll focus on the entity action. To declare an entity action, we write a manifest, similar to what you saw before. There's a few additional properties we can put in the meta section here, but other than that, it should be pretty straightforward. Let's see where this one appears. It's right here in the bottom of the entity action menu. And that is, of course, not where I want it to appear. So I'll add a weight to it, so it goes up in the top. And actually, that's a good reason to highlight a new feature of the Backoffice. We now promote the top entity action next to the entity action menu. And I can make that a little bit clearer if I change the icon to a star. So now you can see that the top one is the one that gets a shortcut right here. I'll change it back to the plus icon. And then I do find it a little bit confusing that there's now 2 create options. So I would like to replace the default one. And that's done with the overrides property, and I declare the alias of the core create action. But there's a slight problem. This one appears everywhere. And I only want the create article action to appear on the articles node. So to fix that, I will append a condition that only permits when the node matches the given ID. In this case, the ID is declared over here. Actually, that is it. So now when you open the other ones, you see the usual create button, but when I click at articles, I see the create articles, the custom create article action. And when I click on it, then I get a custom modal, which I wrote. It's a custom web component. You could put anything in here as you like. I just decided to pick 4 cards to display the different types of articles. So with this, you've seen how I can alter the UI. I brought my own extension to override one of the core extensions, and I used a condition to only make it appear in the situation where I wanted it. Building the UI of this modal might seem like a lot of work to some of you, but it's actually not that bad. Because we now bring a UI library, and that comes with a lot of generic components that are ready for you to use. So are you looking to build some UI in the Backoffice? Then navigate to the UI library and see what is available. There's a lot of input components, various input components. There's even examples like this where we compose multiple components to make, in this case, an advanced table. Each of these things are individual components. And then as well, there's this media card, which I decided to use. So are you looking to create the same look and feel as the Backoffice? Then I would say the UI library is a great help for you. And the next customization is just another example of that. Let me navigate to the right node here. Down here, we have a property editor that helps the editor declare the address, in this case, of the hotel. And that is built with components from the UI library. In this case, the input component and the select component. And make this property editor happen didn't take long for me. Because a web component, and property editor is just another web component. And a web component is a single file that holds an HTML template where I composed the various components. Then I added a little bit of CSS to arrange the fields in the way I wanted, and then a little bit of JavaScript to bind the value of the property with the individual inputs. And once I have such web component, I can declare it via a manifest, almost similar to what you've seen before. But before we look at that manifest, I think it's worth noticing that from Umbraco 14, we split property editors in 2 pieces. And that means we now have a property editor UI and a property editor schema, where the property editor UI is the UI you see in the Backoffice, and then the property editor schema is the data handling on the server. You could also call the property editor schema the property editor on the server. And this enables you to just bring the UI for a property editor. Well, at least if there is already a property editor schema that fits for the needs you have. So this is the manifest for the property editor. It has a few additional fields defined here in the meta section. And one of these is the property editor schema alias, where I declare the way I want my data to be stored. In this case, you may notice that this is not one of the usual property editors that you know from previous versions of Umbraco, like the document picker or text box or toggle But this is using one called plain JSON. And that is because we now provide an additional set of generic property editor schemas that you can use if you would like to store a generic value. And you can use this if you don't need any special handling of the data. So we have now JSON, string, integer, decimal, date, and date time, and whatnot. So if you don't need special data handling on the server, then this could be a choice for you. And what that really does is it helps me save a lot of time building a property editor. So next up, we have a different property editor. Sometimes you are looking to do something that is not that different from the core property editors. The one we saw here, the address property editor, is different, very much clearly different than the other ones. But maybe you are not looking to bring a different interface, but to set higher requirements for the value. And in this case, we can bring additional validation rules. So in this case, we have the text area property editor up here, and out of the box, that supports setting a maximum limit of characters. But in this case, I would like to set a maximum limit on 10 words. And you can see that in action here. I type an additional word. Now we are above 10 words, and I get the usual validation message, and as well that will prevent me from publishing the node. And that is not a core feature. The reason why that is possible is because the validation system is no longer bound to input elements, but instead bound to the data model. So this abstraction means that external sources can bring feedback in. So it means you can write your own validation logic, and then that can influence the state of the validation system, which results in a message displayed, just as you can see here, and as well preventing the user from publishing. And there's really no limit to the logic you want to write. This is completely up to you. For example, you could make it vary depending on the current language. So let's say in Germany you want to allow 14 words, but only 10 in English. Or maybe when there's no picture selected up here, you want to allow for a few more words. Or you can take a completely different approach and ask AI to evaluate your tone of voice. That's completely up to you. There's a lot of opportunities. But let's talk a little bit about how this is done. So I have some JavaScript logic located somewhere here within the frame of the workspace. And that is a little bit vague, but I'll get back to why that is. And then the logic observes the data of this field, and once it determines that the data is invalid, it sets a validation message in the validation system. And there's no specific extension type to add additional validation rules. And to learn why that is, we need to talk about the maybe most important feature of the Backoffice, which is the context API. The context API enables you to communicate with your surroundings, and as the word hints, it's all about context. So this enables you to receive the right APIs for your location, a bit like a dependency injection system. Here we have a yellow frame representing an API that is made available as a context in the context API. The APIs that are made available, we tend to call them contexts. In this case, it represents a workspace context. And the workspace context holds many things. For example, the name and the ID of the current document that we're editing. And here I've added a box representing the element of the code, the element that our code is running from. And in this case, it could have been a property editor. And I would like this property editor to communicate with the workspace context to get the name of the document. And for this, I can use the context API. In code, I'll make a request for the workspace context, and if it's able to find that, I'll get a reference to it back. From that reference, I can now get the name or the ID of the document. If my code was running from this place, then I would not have been able to do it. But luckily, my code is running within this frame, and then I'm able to get the name of the current document. Because the context API is contextual, then the same code running within the block workspace can also get the name. But in this case, it would get the name of the block. So this type of decoupling gives you a flexibility that was not really possible before. And even more importantly, the context API also enables you to receive all sorts of information that we didn't foresee that you would need. Because the whole application is built with the context API, then you can basically communicate with everything. This means your abilities are not limited to a certain set of features that we provided for you, because all of our APIs are provided as contexts. So yeah, basically enabling you to get information that you couldn't retrieve in previous versions. In relation to appending custom validation, this is the same problem and solution. Because the validation system is made available as a context API, then you can communicate with it, as long as your code is running from within that workspace. And once you can communicate with it, you can append validation messages and prevent the user from publishing, for example. And the ability to communicate across things is key in the next customization that I would like to show to you. So in this case, I'll navigate to this document. And right here, we have a promotion article, and that is centered around facilities. So the content manager would like to pick some facilities that they would like to promote, but because everything is directed towards a sale, then they of course also have to pick a few hotels that they would like to promote. So the content manager picks a facility here, and once they pick that, they can pick the hotels that they like to promote down here. This hotel picker is using the multi-node tree picker, and that is not really that helpful in this case. So I would like to replace that experience with something custom. So let's go and change the property editor of this field to a custom one. And this custom property editor is just a property editor UI using the multi-node tree picker schema behind. So this change will not affect the data. I'm just replacing the UI that we are providing to the editors. Let's save it and see it in action. And voila, we have a bit more bold UI here. But that is not the important thing. The important thing is that once you choose hotels, you get a picker that filters the list of hotels based on what hotels supports the facilities that was picked in the other field. And this is possible because of the context API, because now this field can read the value of this field. And let's see that in action. I'll just navigate to this one, and you can see different hotels here. And we can try to change this one to a different one, and you should see different hotels. Cool. Having this relation between these two fields makes it a bit silly for the user to try to pick a hotel before they pick the facilities. So I would like to prevent the editor from doing that. And luckily, UmbraGo 16 came with a new feature called property level permissions. And this enables you to set permissions on the individual properties. And you can do that via the UI on user groups. So you can have a user group that has ability to edit only some of the fields, and you can as well also hide some fields away from some user groups. But more importantly, the architecture behind this is not just limited to the user groups. It's actually a system available via the context API, similar to the validation system. So this means we can alter this at runtime. And in this case, I would like to disable the hotel picker until a facility has been chosen. So let's see if I remove this facility. Then now the hotels field has been disabled or put in read-only mode, and the user can't put anything in there. So, yeah, similar to the validation example earlier, this is done by injecting some JavaScript within the frame of the workspace. This observes the value of the facilities, and when there's no value, it sets a property level permission rule on the hotels picker, and when there is a value, it removes it again. And that's all done via the context API. And as mentioned earlier, the property level permissions can also be used to hide properties. So in theory, you could also choose to only show the hotels picker when specific values are picked, for example. There's really no limits to what you want to do with this. You got the freedom to use it as you want. Okay, so when creating an article right here, we present the users to quite an amount of inputs. And in some cases, you maybe have very bloated documents that can overwhelm the editor when opening it like this and having all these empty fields and where to start and where to stop. To fix that, I want to show you a customization that brings a different editor experience when creating an article. To achieve this, I've added a custom workspace view that gives a step-by-step form. It's up here. And then now I can present the editor to one field at a time. In this case, picking the facilities, and then go to the next step, picking the hotels that we like to promote, and then the next step, which then in this case brings me to the usual editing experience. You could have chosen to build one that took completely over the usual content experience, the usual content editor, but in this case, I just showed you that you can also do it partly, just by replacing or creating a new introduction to it. It's also worth noticing, once I create the document, then this workspace view should go away, because I added a condition to it that only permits it to be shown when it is not created yet. And the web component, the workspace view you saw just before, let me open it again, is just another web component. So notice you can do whatever you want in this field. This was just what I came up with. And because the Backoffice comes with a component to render a property, then this UI actually didn't take long to do. This is basically inserting an element with the alias of the property I want to render here. So looking at this experience, I must admit I get a bit annoyed by the workspace actions we see in the bottom right corner, the save and publish one. I don't think that belongs there when the editor is in this part of their creation flow. So to hide those, I will use another feature of the extension API, which enables me to append a condition to another extension. So I could do that right here with code. And what I've done is I've written a custom condition that does only permit when the current workspace view is not my custom workspace view. Yeah, okay, that was a bit complex. But I can write custom conditions and use them. And I can use them for other extensions. Yes, because a condition is just another extension, similar to all the other things we saw. It's not based on an element, though. It's based on a JavaScript class. But then I can bring my own conditions, and I can use them for my extensions, but also use them for others. Yeah. Yeah. Good. So I hope you really found these new concrete customizations inspiring. And there's, of course, way more ways you can utilize these features than I can show you today. But let's just wrap up by looking at some of the noticeable new extension points that are available for you. So for one, there is now the ability for you to add a workspace action. And we have a new rich text editor called TipTap. And here you can extend multiple places, but I think the most important one is the ability to bring a toolbar button. And back at the collections, which were previously list views, you can now bring your own workspace action. And on all property editors, you can bring a property action. And if you navigate to the workspace info view here, you can now also add more things into that. But it doesn't stop there. You can actually also declare your own extensions. You can utilize the extension register for your things. And this can help you get a good decoupling in your customization. And more importantly, if you're making a package, that then enables users of that to customize or extend your package. So I really hope that you got inspired by this and got a good idea about what you can achieve with customizations in the back office. And to help you get started, then all of the customizations you've seen today can be downloaded here. So please grab these customizations and use them in your projects or use them to learn how everything works. I'm going to wait 5 seconds. Okay, maybe I'll share the link later. And then I hope that you got a lot of questions and would like to know more. So please join me during the day over in the Tibi area. I'll try to stay around over there. For the next 5-10 minutes, I'll be around the stage here, but otherwise I'll go over there. So please come by, ask some questions, or just share your thoughts. I would really love to hear from you. So see you in the Tibi, and have a great rest of the day.